All right, guys, so today is a big day here at the new shop. Today, the guys from the Perkins Builder Brothers channel, they helped me frame the Not So Tiny house, you guys might remember. They are coming out for a couple of days, the next 3 days, to help me get started on some demolition and framing in some of these areas. If you guys watched the shop tour, you'll remember this weird kind of mezzanine situation that one of the previous owners had built out. It's way too low on both levels to comfortably work. They also raised the ceiling, raised the joists for the attic level up above. And after talking to a structural engineer, that really weakened this concrete wall because those joists help to brace the top of that wall. So we're gonna drop this whole ceiling back down, which is gonna be a lot of work considering you're gonna have to remove all the plywood from up top and all the crap that's left up there from the previous owner. And then we can demo this mezzanine, hopefully kind of get back to just a empty area back here so that I can do the building work that we need to do coming up. So they'll be here in about 5 minutes. So I'm gonna keep cleaning up and we can get started here really soon.
The Perkins crew started rolling in a few minutes later, and it had been a while since I had seen Ray and Jason, aka the Ray J Builder Buddies, so it was really good to see those guys again. And once Eric rolled in, we got right to work clearing out the mezzanine and attic area so we could start the demo work. And as you can probably see, this was some insanely dusty work. And this building was a cabinet shop at one point in its life, and the amount of dust packed into every nook and cranny in here is just insane. So once the two areas were cleared out, we got to work pulling the plywood off of this area in the attic, and the goal was to reuse as much of this material as possible, considering the insane cost of building materials currently. Unfortunately, the pieces around the perimeter of this area were sandwiched between the wall framing above and floor joists below, so we had to run a circular saw around the area to cut the boards free, but once that was done, the demo really started moving along. And it never ceases to amaze me how quickly work gets done with a full crew of people who know what they're doing, like the Perkins crew. Since we were going to be removing this entire framed area, we needed to add some temporary bracing to this sidewall, as this floor system was giving this wall a lot of support. And to do this, Eric and Jamie added some diagonal braces, and again, this was just to hold things in place while we kept demoing before we got to the new framing work. Next, we needed to relocate the support posts that connected the girders, which support the roof trusses, to the steel I-beam in the lower level of the building. And these posts had been bearing on this existing floor structure, so we needed to add new, longer posts before removing the floor. Jamie started by hacking out an opening in the floor so the new post could span the distance between the girder and the I-beam, and then we went digging for material for the new posts. And after scrounging through the wood pile left by the previous owner, we found these triple ply oak posts which were perfect for this application. We also went ahead and wedged in a few temporary posts to relieve some of the pressure from the existing posts so that we could remove them more easily. Once that was done, we could get the first post cut to fit, and you might notice that we also set up a line laser to see if this girder had sagged at all over the years, which it had. And to remedy this, we cut our new post a little longer so the girder would end up straighter after the old posts and temporary supports were removed. And as you can see, as we tapped our temporary support out of the way, the girder dropped down onto the new post, and then we could get the post attached to the girder with a few screws. After siding the girder along the length of the building, we also noticed it was bowed out in this area as well. So Eric grabbed a sledge and knocked it back into place, and this also got our new post plumbed up very nicely. We also went ahead and got some of these trusses straightened out while we were at it, and it turned out that these trusses weren't connected to the girder in any way, which is kind of crazy considering this building has been standing since the 70s. And after straightening each truss, we toe screwed them to the girder so they wouldn't twist out of alignment again. And I'm going to go back later and get all of the trusses straightened out and back on layout, and I'll add rat runs to help keep them straight over time. We repeated the same process to install the other post and then got the rest of the plywood removed, grabbing a couple of cool slow-mo dust shots for good measure along the way. Once all the plywood was removed, we needed to get the wall framing dealt with. And basically we had two wall sections here, and we needed to span these two sections with some kind of framing to tie them together. The solution the Perkins brothers came up with was to add an inner piece spanning the two existing rim joists, which would bring the material flush with the studs in the upper wall section, and then we could tie the two sections together with one long stud. To do this, Jamie first got to work notching out the areas for this new framing, since once again we were having to work around this existing framing prior to removing it. Once that was done, we could get the first piece cut to length and nailed into place, again tying the two rim joists together. Finally, to tie everything together, we could add the longer piece, connecting the two wall sections and stiffening this whole wall. From there, we continued getting these sections framed out, but unfortunately we were running a little low on material, so we had to get kind of creative to find the material we needed. And luckily, there were these pegboard walls built out in this attic space, which I had no plans for. So we got them disassembled and used all of that 2x4 material to finish out this wall framing. Also, as we finished the wall framing, we could go ahead and start taking down the joists since the walls were now braced. And luckily this was a pretty simple process with this beast of a Craftsman pry bar. And we just slid the joists out of our way temporarily as we went. Also, in addition to the crazy dust, we had quite a few cobwebs to deal with, and I'm glad Jamie was working up there instead of me.
Or if he should. I don't know if he should.
Yeah, you got a little dangler there.
Once we got a handful of the joists removed, we could start getting them reinstalled back at their original height, and Eric crowned the boards as we went, with the crown facing up. As far as layout, we didn't really have much of one, as we were mainly referencing off of the existing joists, which we were butting these joists up against. And our main goal was to get the joists straight and keep the spacing consistent, and this ended up working out fine. We also went ahead and removed the plywood from the mezzanine as we went, as this was much easier than trying to do it after all the joists were dropped down and in our way. And from there, we really got into a rhythm and the joists started moving super quick.
All right, exactly. Oh, yes. Wow. Money.
Yeah, since Johnny didn't bring a second camera today, there's no shots of this lower mezzanine getting taken down by Jason and Ray. And we don't even know how they did it. There's no video footage, but it happened and it's done.
I don't think it happened.
Oh, it's done.
If you don't
It's
get
gone.
video of it, did it really happen?
Oh. Yeah, go for it.
Here she goes. Nice. Poor tough.
You know what I do know is that the two of us are on this really skinny scaffolding like this far apart.
It's true.
And I didn't have onions for lunch, luckily.
Neither did I.
We wrapped up day one by getting the last of the joists removed, and then I could take a step back to admire our work. And I honestly can't believe we got all of this done in one day. And I was super excited to see what we could knock out on day two. So I started day two by getting some of the larger trash cleared out of the attic while I still had a huge opening in this floor. And as you can see, the previous owner had left a ton of junk up here for me to deal with. Once that was done, we went ahead and addressed another one of the structural issues here in the attic.
Another one of the many things we found here when we removed this floor system is that the floor system was stabilizing this post that's holding the roof up. And you can see now that we've removed the floor, this whole wall is hinging right here, and that's because it's not balloon framed. So we're gonna basically stabilize this with a big stiffener to make it to where it doesn't flex, because there's big doors right here too. And when Johnny goes to slam the doors, boom, this wall is gonna be like doing that number, which is not ideal for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hinging.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's good and solid right there. No flex.
To help with this, we added another vertical piece of framing which spanned across where the previous floor had been located, and this helped in this spot, but then we discovered yet another area of flex in the building.
Wow.
That's no big deal.
Yeah. It's good for airflow.
So once again, the rat runs I'll be adding later will help with this, but I'll also be adding some diagonal bracing to the gable ends, tying them back to the trusses, which will help a ton as well. Anyway, back to the floor, the first thing we did was add a few layout boards which locked the joists into place, and this allowed us to get these joists straightened using our trusty laser eye prior to installing the plywood.
Johnny's giving this the laser eye, because these aren't in any kind of layout. They're just whatever was here, that's what we did. So we can't just lay out our board, because we don't know what it is.
Towards you. Curve.
Oh yeah, that's big curve.
I mean, it's got all the curves.
I mean,
We also went ahead and added that last missing floor joist, and we had to scab together 2 shorter floor joists for this, as I couldn't find these 20-foot long 2x12s locally. Now that all the joists were in, we could start the process of getting the plywood decking reinstalled, and we started by snapping a reference line for the sheets.
Oh, it hit me. I looked straight into the light. The sun was in my eyes. All right, here we go.
The panels on this first row needed to be notched around the posts we'd installed previously, and we got our cut station set up using some foam board as our cutting surface.
I want to know who set up the cut station directly above my coffee, because I just got dusted.
That's good fiber.
This is like
free fiber.
Still in there. Ooh, it's not bad. I'm gonna drink it anyway.
Yeah, man.
We added some Advantech subfloor adhesive to help this plywood stick permanently to these joists, and we attached the panels with 2 3/8 of an inch ring shank framing nails. And the installation was a little slow going, as it was basically a scavenger hunt trying to find a piece the right length to fit the span we needed so that we could save on material. Eventually though, we got to the last piece and the sheathing was done. Next on the list, since we were already working up here in the attic, was getting these trap doors removed and framed back in. As you might remember, the previous owner used these doors as attic access, but they're super dangerous, and I want to insulate this entire floor anyway, so these needed to go. And of course, the hinges on the doors were installed with an absolutely insane number of nails, so they were a little difficult to remove, but eventually we got the first door off.
Wow!
And Eric and Jamie worked on breaking the first door down into more manageable chunks, while I got the second door opened, and then we got the second door removed and cut up before the real fun, dropping the door pieces down to the first floor.
Yeah, can you move that light?
Yeah, that light was gonna be toast.
Safety first, kid.
What?
Safety first.
I can't hear you.
Safety first, kid.
There it is.
Also, did I mention that it was dusty in there? Next, we removed any other extra framing bits, and then we could get joists added back to this giant hole in the floor. And these were the floor joists we removed from the mezzanine, so more reclaimed material was able to be used here as well. Also, I'll be going back and adding joist hangers here, since these joists aren't bearing on the block wall or I-beam like the other joists. Finally, we could scrounge together the last pieces of the 3/4 inch plywood to deck this area, and with that, we could call this part of the shop series a wrap.
All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this one. I am super excited to have this work done here in the attic, and honestly, I was expecting this to take over a week, and with the Perkins crew, it took us 2 days, which it's just nuts working with those guys, and I am so thankful to call them friends and have them able to help out on projects like this. So with the attic floor lowered back down, it meant that we could go ahead and get to work framing the walls in the shop area, which is super exciting. That was a big step in this project. So if you guys don't want to miss that video and the rest of the videos in this series, go ahead and get subscribed and ring that notification bell. Also, as always, I'll have links to all the tools and materials I use down in the video description below. And last, if you want to support me, I sell merch, I sell plans for my woodworking projects, and I have Patreon and YouTube memberships set up. So go check those out if you're interested. All right, thanks for watching, y'all, and until next time, happy building.
This is a nice piece here. I might actually take that home and use it, you know? It's already got the hangers on it.
What do you think that does for the structural?
I mean, I think it's double as strong as it is. Double as strong as it was, I'll tell you that much. It's at least twice as much.
Good airflow, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it won't ever rot. I mean, I'm gonna check the match, but I think it's twice as good.